Oh yeah, last albums, here we go. I've got a list of every artist I could think of. I'm going to rank each band's most recent album today. Does your favorite band hold up? Do they go out with a bang? Do they dig up a dead rapper's corpse and release clippings of his voice 20 years later? Let's find out, shall we? Queen, Made in Heaven. It seems to serve as the concluding piece of Freddie Mercury's life, a gut-wrenching conclusion for one of the most iconic musicians to ever live. A lot of these tracks do the kind of stink, though, sorry. Made in Heaven alone is a reason to listen to this, though, I would say. It's a great tribute. Still D-tier, though. The Strokes, The New Abnormal. Now this is phenomenal shit. The Strokes were kind of hit or miss after Is This It, so for about 20 years or so. But their most recent record is a truly fantastic one. I like it a lot. Very cohesive, very touching, really great shit. S tier. Disturbed, Divisive. Every record I hear from Disturbed just gets worse and worse, my god. Youched here. I've missed you, Youched here. Welcome back. Elliot Smith, From a Basement on the Hill. As far as posthumous albums go, this is certainly one of the better ones. It's much weaker than a lot of his discography, but there are some real great tracks on here, I'd say. A tier. The Velvet Underground, Squeeze. Truthfully, this is one of the most absurd fall-offs I've ever seen in my life. This doesn't resemble the Banana in any way. Soulless trash here. I've received word most of the band was gone at this point, but it's very clear. It's a terrible shame that this goes in their discography. Another Youched here. Behind Disturbed, my god. Primus, The Desaturating Seven. I'll never say their name right. A shorter record from Primus here, and a concept album rock opera kind of thing going on. Say what you want, but these freaks are always throwing some new shit at their fans. Expect nothing from Primus, not even good music. Behind Queen, in the D tier. Alice in Chains, Rainier Fog. And 15 years after the great Lane Staley's death, Jerry Cantrell and whatever frauds he's gathered in his retirement home deliver a mediocre record. I don't hate everything this band did after Lane died, but this is the weakest record from that era by a margin. Nothing here to come back to at all. Back of the D tier. Arctic Monkeys, The Car. It's just mid, man. These guys could shit on their fans' windshield, and I think they'd still thank them. I think this band has been ass since AM, and this record does nothing to disprove that at all. Very mid, D tier, behind Queen. Joy Division, Closer. Now this I can get behind. 2 phenomenal albums in 2 years, and then they just fucked off. That's how you do it. This is a great project, very cohesive, miserably depressing, but very cohesive and powerful. Back of the S tier. Audio Slave, Revelations. Mid stuff, worst record from these guys. D tier, behind Queen. Avenged Sevenfold, Life is But a Dream. This is no dream, dear viewer. This is a nightmare. And no, I don't mean the significantly better album from the same band. This blows asshole. Top of the Youched tier. Beastie Boys, Hot Sauce Committee Part 2. It's not so bad. It's not great, no way, but it's not completely devoid of charm. Make Some Noise, a pretty good song with a phenomenal music video if that's your thing. Better than you'd think, I'd say. C tier. Pearl Jam, Dark Matter. This is probably the best shit Pearl Jam's put out in the 21st century, to be honest. They were pretty mid there for a while, but this is alright enough. There's no tracks I absolutely love on here, but there's nothing I hate. Top of the C tier. Misfits, The Devil's Reign. I actually can't put into words how bad this is. I'm almost tempted to make a new tier below Youch, but I don't know what I'd call it, so back of the Youch tier. Queens of the Stone Age and Times New Roman. This is pretty solid, but man does it look weak in their discography. It's not close to their peak, but it's not a bad project. B tier. Ween, La Cucaracha. It hurts my heart, dear viewer, just know that. I am very rapidly becoming a huge Ween fan, but man, this just isn't very good. It's got its track, but it also has some tracks that just blow complete ass. Feels much more like their earlier work than it should, I'd say. D tier, behind Queen. Weezer, Van Weezer, pretty bad, man. It feels rushed, it feels unfinished, it doesn't sound good. That should be enough. Back of the D tier. My Chemical Romance, Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. The name is too long, so I've made up a quick and easy little acronym for us to use. MCRDDTTLOTFK. It's inconsistent, but it's not a bad album, I'd say. Fuck the name, though. That shit's dumb. Back of the C tier. Swans, Birthing. A brand new record from the Swans, released this year in 2025, over 40 years after the band's debut. And fuck, man, this is pretty good. I don't think it's the peak of their discography, far from it, I'd even say, but I think that more so speaks to the quality of the rest of their shit. This is a pretty good record, especially 40 years into someone's career. I like it. Top of the A tier. Slipknot, The End So Far. There appears to be a new Slipknot record releasing this year, but I can't do much about that. Knowing this record isn't the conclusion to their discography is certainly a relief. This is pretty bad stuff. I didn't enjoy this at all, to be honest. Back of the D tier. Opeth, The Last Will and Testament. A return to form for Opeth, but not really in terms of quality, I wouldn't say. It's their heaviest record in a good minute, and probably their best record in the last decade or so, but it's not in the conversation for their best work. It's alright, I'd say. It's not particularly great, but it's not bad. Top of the B tier. Pierce the Veil, The Jaws of Life. It starts off decent enough, but then you remember Vic Fuentes is going to be singing for the next 40 minutes and begin planning your escape. Musically, it's fairly lazy, and I've never been a fan of the vocals with this band, ever. I'm going to put a D tier behind Premise. Blur, The Ballad of Darren. I don't know what the fuck these critics are on, but I thought this was a fairly average project from Damon and the Fellas. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I don't really care about it. At this point, wrap it up. You know what I mean? Enough is enough. Back of the C tier. Deftones, Ohms. An asterisk on this one as well. As I prepare to write this video, Chino presses the emergency button and releases Koi no Yokan 2, which I pray closes their discography better than this record. I don't like Ohms. I know people do, but I'm not people. I'm built different, in a way. No, I don't know. I don't revisit this at all. I don't have a single song saved, to be honest. I don't enjoy this. I don't know what else to say. C tier behind Pearl Jam. Coldplay, Moon Music. This album has what I call Coldplay syndrome. It's a very serious case, in fact. I just don't care about it. Who cares anymore? If you like Coldplay, that's great, man. But I imagine you're not throwing on any projects from the last decade. I'd be shocked. D tier behind Pierce the Veil. David Bowie, Toy. I wish we could all vote somewhere, perhaps the Supreme Court, to just erase this album from existence. It's such an ugly mark on an otherwise beautiful career. If only Black Star was his last album, man. This shit just sucks. This sounds exactly like the album art looks, if that's clear enough for you. Youch tier, above Disturbed. Led Zeppelin, In Through the Outdoor. What a disappointing way to go out for these guys. It's just really weak. Their weakest record by far, and a super disappointing way to conclude an otherwise legendary career. Top of the D tier. Oasis, Dig Out Your Soul. The internet seems to be coming full circle on Oasis with their recent live reunion, but don't worry, dear viewer, I have no bias either way. This is a classic Oasis record. It's not in terms of quality, but the formula is the exact same. There's 3 or 4 great tracks, the rest fucking suck. That's it right here. Behind Queen, in the D tier. Wu-Tang Clan, Black Samson, The Bastard Swordsman. A 2025 project surprised me from these old farts, and I wouldn't say they're as sharp as ever, though that would sound pretty cool, but it's just not true. I think they're out of shit to say, to be honest. I've thought so for a long time. Back of the B tier, though. It's not bad. Boston, Life, Love, and Hope. Boston's self-titled record released in 1976. This came out in 2013. Every album in between these two sucks. This album also sucks. It slowly gets worse with each album until this grand crescendo shit sandwich hits your ears like a fucking car. Ass. Bottom of the ouch tier. Death, The Sound of Perseverance. Here we go. A band that didn't parade around after their lead singer died. It's very refreshing. This is Chuck Schuldiner final work with the band, and perhaps his best. Symbolic or this, I don't know, and I don't care. But I'd say both records are free and easy GOAT tiers. The Red Hot Stinky Peppers, Return to the Dream Canteen. I gave them a very slight bit of praise in my last video, and I'm sure that concerns some of you. But don't worry, we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. Before my review, might I interest you in a little fun fact? Anthony Kiedis is a pedophile, self-admitted in his own book. That's all. This album sucks. It's not completely without charm, but it's an 80-minute project with about 10 minutes of good music. Bad ratio. D tier, behind Coldplay. Megadeth, The Sick, The Dying, and the Dead. Dave Mustaine in the big 2022. My God. Enough is enough, old man, please. Above the Chili Peppers, in the D tier. Nirvana, In Utero. Excellent album. There's not really much for me to say. It's undeniably excellent. Very cohesive, and the strong tracks here are absolute rock classics. You can't go wrong with this project. Top of the GOAT tier. Eminem, The Death of Slim Shady. How many times is this old fart gonna retire before I can stop listening to new garbage from him? Seriously, surely this is it, right? Enough is enough, please? Youch tier, behind Disturbed. Biggie Smalls, The King and I. This album is credited as Faith Evans and Biggie, but it's so bad that it needed to be mentioned. This is one of the most insulting pieces of music I've ever heard in my life. 20 years after the death of Biggie Smalls, to watch Faith Evans defile his grave for the 3rd time in his career, and then deliver one of the stinkiest albums I've ever heard, it's actually surreal. There's actually not a single redeeming quality about this project. This might be the worst one ever. Back of the ouch tier. Fishman's, Please Forgive Me. Ushu Nippon Setagaya. Peak. Top to bottom peak. I'm a big fan of this band. Truly one of the most creative and unique bands I've ever heard, in this album, while probably not the peak of their discography, is an absolutely excellent conclusion to the legendary Shinji Sato. GOAT tier, behind Nirvana. Godspeed You Black Emperor, no title as of 13 February 2024, 28,340 dead. Anytime something absolutely horrible happens, you can expect a Godspeed You Black Emperor record dropping very shortly. This is beautiful, it's powerful, it's incredibly relevant, I like this a lot. It's not their peak, but a band very clearly still in form. Back of the S tier. Radiohead, A Moon-Shaped Pool. I'm a huge fan of this band, and this album has grown on me a lot recently. I didn't really love this album for a long time, but the more I listen to it, and perhaps the older I get, the more this album kind of clicks for me, and the closer to home it hits. Mesmerizing both musically and lyrically, and a great send-off to a legendary band. Please come back, Tom. Back of the GOAT tier. System of a Down, Hypnotize. Had these silly bellies released this and Mesmerize as a double album, I'd have a slightly higher placement and score. But I find this half to be significantly weaker. It's good, it's got some phenomenal tracks on it, but it's definitely not in the same realm as Toxicity, or even their self-titled record, no way. Back of the A tier. Bullet for My Valentine's self-titled project. Very alright. I'm not a huge fan of these guys. This isn't bad. It's very reminiscent of their earlier stuff. I've just never found them to be that great. D tier, behind Ween. The Beatles, Let It Be. When discussing the Beatles, there's just too many fucking phenomenal albums to discuss. Why would you waste your time talking about this album? It feels like a waste. It's got its standout tracks, and were this any other band, this might be a higher tiered album. But off the heels of Abbey Road, this is just, it falls flat. Top of the B tier. The Cure, Songs of a Lost World. Now this surprised the fuck out of me. 45 years after their debut, Robert Smith returns to the microphone and delivers a seriously great project. It's not their best shit, but for a 66-year-old man, the passion and the freshness of this record is truly remarkable. Great project. Back of the S tier. Green Day, Saviors. The only saving this does is saves Green Day the embarrassment of concluding their discography with the record Father of All, a serious contender for the worst album ever. This is much better, but quite literally anything would have been better. You could smash my car window and spit in my face, and I'd leave the scene happier than I was after listening to that album. Little tangent there, sorry. This sucks also. D tier. Behind Alice in Chains. Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy. Pretty insultingly bad. I've never been a huge Guns N' Roses fan, but this is kind of just universally bad. This just sucks. It's devoid of charm. Behind Eminem, in the ouch tier. The Smile, Cutouts. More like Cut It Out. Am I right, guys? I stole that joke from this guy. This project isn't so bad. Probably my least favorite The Smile record, but I view them all as a solid 7.5 out of 10, every record. Back of the B tier. Hum, Inlet. I didn't even know this existed. I listened to the one with the zebra and thought that was all they had in them. I wish it was, to be honest. This isn't great. There's worse shit on here, though. Behind Deftones, in the C tier. The Roots, And Then You Shoot Your Cousin. A little overambitious, this record. It's a good enough concept and decent enough storytelling, but it just comes off poorly. It's not really a worthwhile listen. Behind Audioslave, in the D tier. Shinedown, Planet Zero. I laughed at Shinedown last video, and someone in my comments said they were actually offended. Maybe they were joking, but if they weren't, I'd like to apologize. Not really. No, they have their hits. None of them on this project, though. This is insultingly bad stuff. Pretentious trash, morally superior garbage. Behind Guns N' Roses, in the ouch tier. Nas, Magic 3. It's hard not to compare everything this guy puts out to Illmatic, but in a vacuum, this isn't a bad album. Fairly inconsistent, but the tracks that are good here are pretty solid, even if there's only one or two of those. Top of the C tier. Travis Scott, Utopia. This project is right on the edge of being great. It's crazy inconsistent, though. Some really great songs on here mixed with some really bad songs. Classic Travis Scott, I'd say. The good here does outweigh the bad. Behind the Beatles, in the B tier. Incubus 8, an asterisk here as well. Incubus announced a new record releasing this year titled Something in the Water. To say I'm not optimistic is such a massive understatement it's hard to describe. If it's anything like 8, it will be terrible. 8 is soulless trash, a shell of the band they once were, trying to pinch a couple more pennies. Youch, above David Bowie. Korn, Requiem. Man, what a pile of average shit here. Actually, below average shit. It's just a pile of shit. Bad top to bottom. Back of the D tier. Iron Maiden, Senjutsu. I wish I could say Unk still has it, but I can't say it. 40 years after their debut, and I'd estimate about 20 years out of their prime. Being generous, this isn't their worst. But that's because their worst is some really terrible shit. This is really weak still. D tier. Above Alice in Chains. Jay-Z, 444. This is a pretty great album to go out on. Definitely not the peak of his career, but it was looking real bad there for a while, musically. It still looks pretty bad for Jay-Z as a person, but he bounced the fuck back with this album, I'd say. A tier. Behind the Swans. Acid Bath, Pagan Terrorism Attacks. Really strong record from these guys. Slightly worse than their debut, admittedly. But I like this project enough. Stronger at the front, but top to bottom, I'd say I had fun. Behind Jay-Z, in the A tier. Smashing Pumpkins, Agori Mori May. You know what? This stinks, but man is it better than the last decade of music from these guys. Billy Corgan seemed to have completely forgotten how to write music there for a while, but they recovered at least a little bit with this project. It's still pretty mid, though. Above Oasis, in the D tier. 9 Inch Nails, Ghost 6, Locusts. This is decent enough as a closing piece, but it's nowhere near this band's peak. Pretty solemn record, slightly reminiscent of the Downward Spiral, but it's just not nearly as good. Solid 7 out of 10, I'd say. Above the Beastie Boys, in the C tier. The Police, Synchronicity. Pretty solid shit here. A classic on here in Every Breath You Take, but the rest of this album doesn't do a crazy amount for me. I like it enough, though. B tier. Above Opeth. 50 Cent, Animal Ambition, an untamed desire to win. This is laughably bad, for real. Like, I laughed during this. This might be the single silliest album I've ever heard. Above Boston. In the ouch tier. Kanye West, Bully. I'm cheating a little bit here. This album hasn't been fully released as I'm writing this video, but based on the 5 songs released so far, I believe I can accurately estimate that this album is going to suck gargantuan balls. A tentative youch tier above Shinedown. A Tribe Called Quest, We Got It From Here, Thank You For Your Service. This is a phenomenal record, maybe the best I've ranked so far. A beautiful send-off for the group, and especially for Phife Dawg. I love this a lot. Very bittersweet record, incredible lyricism you come to expect from these guys. One of their best records. Top of the GOAT tier. The Microphones in 2020. An excellent return from these guys. Usually after a 17-year break, the new project comes off like a money grab, but this album feels purposeful, it feels powerful, and it's incredibly beautiful. A great send-off for Phil Elverum, if this is his final record with the Microphones. Top of the S tier. Kendrick Lamar, GN'X. I really don't think this is all that good. Perhaps I've been spoiled by T-Pab and Good Kid, Mad City, but this project feels really empty to me. Musically, it's fine enough, and there's some standout tracks here, but a lot of this feels kind of poppy, kind of boring to me. One of his worst records for sure, although I doubt this is his final record. Back of the A tier. The Cranberries, In the End. A fairly sweet send-off to Dolores, but not a particularly notable record, I wouldn't say. It's notable as the concluding piece of their discography. First couple tracks here are very touching, though. Top of the C tier. Portishead, Third. This is a very strange record. I like it a lot, but man, it's almost indescribable shit on here. Very immersive record, very powerful shit. S tier. Behind Joy Division. The Doors, An American Prayer. The Doors had a strange career after Jim Morrison's passing. They tried to go on without him, and that shit did not work in the slightest bit. When that didn't work out, they decided to dig up his body and release one last project, and it's still pretty weak shit. The bits of Jim shine through, but poetry that wasn't meant for music, for a reason, doesn't work here. It's not completely worthless, I wouldn't say. Above Premise, in the D tier. King Crimson, The Power to Believe. 35 years after their debut in their magnum opus, this comes off incredibly flat. They lost it at some point in the 80s, and they just never got it back. This isn't horrible, but it's incomparable to this band's peak. Top of the D tier. The Smiths, Strange Ways, Here We Come. Probably the weakest of the Smiths album, but by no means a bad project. This doesn't really have any mega hits like their other stuff, but it's consistently pretty solid, I'd say. B tier, above Opeth. Tupac, Pac's Life. This is the Biggie album done very slightly better. It's still god-awful trash released a decade after Pac's death, but it's not quite as insultingly garbage as The King and I wouldn't say. Above Boston, in the ouch tier. The Jimi Hendrix Experience, Electric Ladyland. Undeniably one of the greatest records ever released. This is phenomenal. One of the most profound albums I've heard in a long time. Musically brilliant. This album's absurdly good. Top of the GOAT tier. Pantera, Reinventing the Steel. I'm not a huge fan of Pantera, but even for them, this is a pretty weak project. Nothing I really loved on here. Nothing I really loved or hated here. It's just a pretty forgettable project to end on, I'd say. Back of the C tier. Black Country, New Road, Forever How Long. Another band that probably isn't finished. This album's pretty good. The lack of Isaac Wood is incredibly apparent on this album, obviously vocally, but even creatively, this album just feels like it's missing something to me. Still pretty good though. Top of the B tier. U2, Songs of Surrender. I'm still not listening to this shit, man. 2 hours and 40 minutes is fucking crazy. It's got a 32 on albumoftheyear.org. I'm going to use that to guide me. Youch tier. Above 50 Cent. Slowdive, Everything Is Alive. It's very standard shoegaze, I'd say. I don't typically like that, and I don't love it here. I do really highly rate Souvlaki from these guys, but this album's disappointing, especially with that in mind. Top of the C tier. Stone Temple Pilots, Perdida. Really mid stuff here. Since the death of Scott Weiland, I think this band's been completely lost. I don't like this at all. This doesn't even resemble STP in any way. You put this next to Core, and I doubt you'd be able to tell they're the same band. This is awful shit. Youch tier. Above Incubus. Tool, Fear Inoculum. Keep Dreaming, guys. Album number 6 gotta be right around the corner. If this is it for Tool, then to be completely honest, I'm a little disappointed. It's a fine enough album, but man, does it pale in comparison to this band's peak. It's not bad. A tier, behind Elliot Smith. Limp Bizkit still sucks. You know what? This might actually be one of the better Limp Bizkit records. That doesn't mean much. They suck, but this isn't completely empty. It's about as empty as their other shit, so it's not worse and it's not better. Above Iron Maiden, in the D tier. Suicidal Tendencies, still psychopunk after all these years. Ass. Youch behind Disturbed. Third Eye Blind, Our Band Apart. To convince me this is the same band that wrote Semi-Charmed Life, you would first have to lobotomize me, followed by a hypnotism ritual, followed by a bonk on the head with a cartoonishly large hammer. This is a husk of the band I once knew. This is boring. Top of the ouch tier. Linkin Park from Zero. Much better than that last pile of ash they cooked up with Chester, but this whole project comes off a little poorly, I'd say. I think Chester was actually just irreplaceable in this band, straight up. I'm sorry if you disagree. It's no slight to the new girl, but it's not for me. D tier. Behind Audioslave. Typo negative. Dead Again. This was so goddamn long, it's insane, man. Only an hour and 20 minutes, but my god, I feel like I died again while listening to this shit. It's got its good moments, but I would never listen to this record top to bottom again. No way, man. C tier, above My Chemical Romance. Paramore, This Is Why. I always think this band is older than they are, but they've still got some shit in the tank. I don't think it quite lives up to some of their older records, but it's certainly not apples to oranges. This is comparable to their peak, I would say. A tier, above Kendrick. Massive Attack, Heligoland. It's not bad. It's not typically my thing. I've heard exclusively good things about this band, but this is my introduction to these guys, and I'm not impressed with it. It's decent enough, I guess. C tier, behind MCR. Metallica, 72 Seasons. Enough, guys, please. You're gonna kill me. It's been 40 years since their debut record, and it shows. This shit just sounds old. It's like watching an old man try to ride a bicycle. They don't have it anymore. At least creatively, this is just hollow shit. D tier, above Alice in Chains. Black Sabbath, 13. It's better than you'd probably expect. After Forbidden, I nearly pried my ears right off my head, but this is a much better project. 18 years after their previous project, it's a return to form for these guys, and I'm glad they closed with this. It's not up there with their best work, but it's solid enough. C tier, behind Pearl Jam. Foo Fighters, But Here We Are. A very touching tribute to the late Taylor Hawkins, and quite honestly, one of the better Foos records top to bottom. It's got the rock radio trash intermingled here, but this record ends absolutely incredibly. Two phenomenal closing tracks. I didn't think they had it in them anymore. I pray they end here. Please, Dave, don't fucking do it. A tier, behind Tool. Creed, Full Circle. This kind of stinks. Actually, scratch the kind of this shit stinks. Youch tier, above Incubus. Pink Floyd, The Endless River. Almost 50 years after their debut. That's already concerning. The bigger concern arrives when you read the band members on this fucking thing. It's a tribute to Richard Wright without Roger Waters, so it's just David Gilmour and Nick Mason from the Golden Lineup. All Pink Floyd albums following The Wall, I would say, fucking suck. And I think that's blatantly due to the absence of Roger Waters. This stinks. It's missing everything that made Pink Floyd legendary. Above Creed, in the ouch tier. Gojira, Fortitude, decent enough. It's not up there with their peaks, but this was a pretty fun listen. It's not as consistent as your From Mars to Sirius, but the highs here are pretty high, I'd say. B tier, behind Opeth. Aerosmith, Music from Another Dimension. Shockingly horrible stuff. Well, not really shocking, actually. These guys kind of suck. But they suck especially bad here. This is without value. This is a valueless album. I would prefer the hour and 8 minutes were simply just wiped away from my life. Youch tier, above Tupac. Gorillaz, Cracker Island. What island? Can they say that? I didn't have fun. I do not want to see a Bad Bunny feature on your album. I especially don't want to see a terrible Bad Bunny feature on your album. The title track is pretty good. That's all the praise I have. Behind Limp Bizkit, in the D tier. Rage Against the Machine, Renegades, pretty weak conclusion. I do come back to a couple tracks here, but to go out on a covers record is pretty lackluster. Especially from a band as loud and as vocal as Rage Against the Machine was. Disappointing for sure. C tier, behind Nine Inch Nails. REM, Collapse Into Now. Super average shit right here. Nothing awful, nothing great. Back of the C tier. Arcade Fire, Pink Elephant. This wants to be different so bad that the band seemed to take out every point they had in quality and put that shit directly into just be as weird as they can physically be. This is the same band that wrote Funeral, by the way. I had no idea. I couldn't tell. This blows. Behind Bowie, in the ouch tier. MF Doom, Super What? Released after his death, this isn't nearly as insulting as the Biggie project, but I always find these releases just super disingenuous. If you really like Doom, you'll probably like this, but why listen to this? It's a collection of unreleased, kind of just mid stuff. Above Blur, in the C tier. Soundgarden, King Animal. This just falls super flat. Very weak from Soundgarden, a decade after their previous album. Why bother? I've heard this was a joke, but to be quite frank, I stared blankly at my TV the entire time this album played. I wasn't giggling. No sir. D tier, above Audioslave. Mastodon, Hushed and Grim. This is pretty decent. A couple great tracks on here, a couple stinkers. You know the deal. Above MCR, in the C tier. Have a Nice Life, Sea of Worry. This probably just shouldn't exist. A tragic way to end a relatively legendary 2-album run. Well, at least the legendary debut. This does nothing for me. It's forgotten. Goodbye. Behind Queen, in the D tier. Steely Dan, Everything Must Go. It seems like everything really had to go. This feels like an unreleased collection of just mediocre stuff. It's not a great project from them. Above Weezer, in the D tier. Sleep Token, Even in Arcadia. I don't know how much longer I can do this, dear viewer. This is getting seriously painful. This sucks. Let's move on. Behind Guns N' Roses, in the ouch tier. Modest Mouse, The Golden Casket. This sucks pretty bad, man. The lows on this album are actually just god-awful. And the highs, they just don't carry enough weight here. I say highs, but really I just mean high. There's one decent song on here, I'd say. Above Disturbed, in the ouch tier. Frank Ocean, Blonde. Excellent record. Hopefully this isn't the last we hear from Frank Ocean. A much-needed palate cleanser. I feel like the last 40 albums have been ass. Behind Death, in the GOAT tier. Mos Def, The Ecstatic. And When It Rains It Pours. Another fantastic album here. Many thought Mos Def lost it after those two stinkers following his debut record, but this project brings him right back up to the top, I'd say. It's not on streaming services, which is probably the culprit behind its underrated status, but this is a phenomenal project top to bottom with some of the highest peaks of his career, I'd say. Back of the S tier. Mr. Bungle, The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny demo. Very out of place within Mr. Bungle's discography. This feels much more like a Faith No More record to me. It's not bad, but it's certainly not great either. Couple decent tracks, but I won't be back here. Above Oasis, in the D tier. Van Halen, A Different Kind of Truth. Significantly better than their previous project, but my god was that one just really bad. This isn't great, but I don't want to die throughout the entire project, so we're slightly improving, I'd say. Above Incubus, in the ouch tier. Descendants, Ninth and Walnut. Very mid stuff here. 40 years after their debut, please just call that shit a day. It's over. Let it go. Fuck. Above Gorillaz, in the D tier. Interpol, The Other Side of Make Believe. Very unimpressive shit here. Not painfully bad, but average through and through. D tier. Behind the Gorillaz. 3 Days Grace, Explosions. They've got another record coming soon, but I'm not sure if I've ever cared less about an album release. It's going to sound the exact same as every single other 3 Days Grace song. This album blows. Youch tier. Behind Sleep Token. Muse, The Will of the People. Man, this is just so garbage. What a joke of an album. Society bad. It's that sentiment for 40 fucking minutes. Unbearably boring. Right above Shinedown in the ouch tier because they're pretty much the same album. The Killers, Pressure Machine. Probably not the last we hear from the Killers. I fear these frauds are going to farm a radio hit once a year until the day the robot they put Brandon Flowers' brain in is shut down forever. This is probably one of their better projects top to bottom, to be honest, but it still comes off pretty hollow to me. D tier, above Led Zeppelin. A Perfect Circle, Eat the Elephant. Maynard, you bastard. This is pretty weak stuff from the gang here. 14 years after their previous album. That's actually longer than the gap between Fear Inoculum and 10,000 Days. Nobody mentions that shit. But this was not even slightly worth the wait. It's not an unbearable project, but it's just not very good. Horrifyingly weak second half. Behind Ween, in the D tier. Faith No More, Sol Invictus. It's better than their earlier shit, thanks to my glorious king Mike Patton, but this project isn't all that cohesive. Ironically, this feels like more of a Mr. Bungle project to me than a Faith No More one. It's inconsistent, but the good songs here I'd say hold up pretty well. I'll go C tier, above Deftones. My Bloody Valentine, MVB. More shoegaze slop on a plate, I fear. It's decent enough. I like a couple tracks here a lot, actually, but I can't help but say it drags a bit. A lot of this band's discography sounds the same to me. It's same formula, same riffs, same everything. It's good enough. B tier, behind Travis Scott. That's all I have here. Very bottom-heavy list, this one. Makes you wonder. But before we wrap this up, let's take a quick look at our top tier. Dead. Outlier. Dead. 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 Current artist. And contender for one of the greatest bands ever. A lot of these artists simply just overstay their welcome, man. It's hard to watch. Here's the list in all its glory. Please remember, whether or not you agree, I don't actually care. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe or the new Deftones album will be bad. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.